study guide. This is going to be due on Tuesday, the 23rd of March. So it says, use only the text to answer the following questions. Be sure to restate using capital letters and punctuation. So let's read the story. Elk and rabbits live on the west side of the river. Both populations eat grass, trees, and pine cones. The seeds of the pine cones grow best after the cones are eaten by the animals and dropped elsewhere around the riverside. Skunks are found on the east side of the river. They eat insects that burrow into trees and earthworms. Blackbirds are found on both sides of the river. The blackbirds eat the seeds from the pine cones and the insects from the trees. Number 1, give an example of competition from the west side. So west side, I'm looking up here. Explain how this is an example of competition. So we know competition is where two organisms or two populations are competing or fighting for the same thing. So if I'm looking back up here, we could restate by saying an example of competition from the west side is, and if I'm looking at competition, they're trying to get the exact same thing. So elk and rabbits live on the west side of the river. Both competitions eat grass, trees, and pine cones. So an example of competition from the west side is between elk and rabbits because they both eat grass, trees, and pine cones. And then I've got to have punctuation. Now number 2 says, give an example of a predator-prey relationship on the west side. Explain how this is an example of predator-prey relationship. So I got to restate an example of a predator-prey relationship from the west side is between, so if I'm looking back to the west side, again, elk and rabbits live on the west side of the river. Both populations eat grass, trees, and pine cones. The seeds of the pine cones grow best after the cones are eaten by the animals and dropped elsewhere around the riverside. So if I'm trying to think of predator-prey, that's where one organism consumes or eats another one for energy. So I'm just going to use rabbits and grass, between rabbits and grass. And so it says that I need to explain how that's an example. So I could say the rabbits eat the grass, and I might even say rabbits, that would be our predator, and then grass is the prey. The rabbits eat the grass for energy or food. Now I'll help you with this one last one. It says, give an example of mutualism from the west side. Explain how this is an example of mutualism. And so when we're looking at this, mutualism we know is where both benefit, a plus plus. So I would write an example of mutualism from the west side is, and if I'm going ahead and rereading it, says elk and rabbits live on the west side of the river. Both populations eat grass, trees, and pine cones. The seeds of the pine cone grow best after the cones are eaten by animals and dropped elsewhere around the riverside. So if we're talking about where both organisms benefit, it would be between the animals and the seeds, because the animals are going to get food from the seeds and the seeds are going to get to be planted or populated elsewhere. So an example of mutualism from the west side is between animals and seeds. And now we've got to explain it as well. So we could say animals get food from the seeds, and the seeds get planted elsewhere, we'll just say other places, after the animal drops it. Drops the seed, because it goes through their digestive system. And what you need to do is finish the rest, but keep in mind these rest of them are for east side of it.